Okay, we are live. This is our session number 13, the last session in the Start on Dart community for this period of the time. I won't be giving any sessions this summer, but I will see later on. The topic of the session is persisting data in MongoDB, and we'll start with that. And also we'll look at how to basically use the application on Dart Void, and many thanks to Robert, who helped me a lot yesterday and today to go through the baby steps. And finally, it's not difficult, but you have to know certain things, and the first time is always the most difficult one. Okay, so let's go into the screen sharing. And we are now in Dart Editor, and the application now has two subfolders, client and server. And in Dart Editor, if I do not open separately the client and the server, the pub is confused and always have some kind of red color and all kinds of weird messages or warnings, or because they are really separate applications with their own pub spec files. And it is a way to do it if you want to use Dart Void. So our client is basically the same one with some small changes. We'll see that later on with respect to what's required by Dart Void. But major changes are in the server folder of the project. And as usually we did it before by using the Learning Dart website, and this time I've updated the list of my projects in the left column. So the last week we used a project called To Do MVC, and today there is a separate project with MongoDB that is called To Do MVC MongoDB. Okay, before I forget, and I usually forget that, I have MongoDB installed on my machine. This is a Windows machine, and it is on disk C, and it's a 2.4 version. I think there is the last version is 2.6, but I haven't changed it yet. And I have to start the server. And to stop the server, it's Control C, and I should not forget that at the end of the session. Okay, so the server is on, and I can now start the server. But before I do that, I have to say that there is a small change from the last week. Again, the requirement of Dart Void: the server .dart file must be in the server folder. So I removed the bin folder from the server, and this is the server data file. There are certain things that are sort of parameterized this time in order to be able to use the server locally and also by at Dart Void. So we'll start with the local server first, and you can see here that we first check if there is a MongoDB _URI variable in the environment for the platform, and if that variable is not null, then we are using basically Dart Void. So our DB URI argument becomes what we've obtained from the environment, not null value, and the database name is just an empty space because on Dart Void the name is included in the address. So we pass these two parameters to the constructor of the To Do MVC database class. But if the value is null, then we have these two variables already set up for the local server. So if we look at the constants on the beginning, The database URL for the local server is MongoDB, localhost, I guess, and the name is, and the name can be anything. I gave the name, I gave to-do underscore MVC underscore number 2. I gave that name, and we'll have these two values that will go as arguments to the constructor, and hopefully we'll be able to create a database, which is an object, which is a property of this class, of the to-do MVC database class, and we will open the database. And after we open the database, then it's a future. Then after the open method, has done its job, then we can start. Here we have the anonymous function with one parameter, and we may use the underscore here if we really don't care what that parameter is. Okay, so the start function is here, and there is a slight difference between this and the previous version. What we do here is, again, we are checking what is the port, what is the value of the port variable in the environment of the platform, and if that value is if the value is null, then we'll take the constant. But if the value is not null, meaning it comes from the environment, from the port variable, then we will, it's a number, the port is a number, so we'll pass this number in order to get the port number for that void, and then we'll be using this variable in the bind methods of the HTTP server. I haven't used yet the Wayne server of that void. I'll try to do that the next week as well, just to become more familiar what that void is offering. But what I wanted to do for today is just to have the basics so that we can show the version of this application on that void at the end of the session. Okay, so that's how we get the port number. If we don't have that environment variable, then the port will be 8080, what we use locally. Okay, so we can now start the server. And we are listening here on the localhost 8080, so we are here. We are basically using the local MongoDB database. So let's now see the client. And the client has also a slight change. Before, or the last week, I used the to-do underscore MVC HTML file, the same name that we have for this file here, but it should be, for that void, it should be index.html. So it's the same code, and in the index.html file, we have the reference to our to-do underscore MVC that file. Okay. Then what we do in the main function, as usual, we create our repository for dartling, and then for the domain called to do, we get a domain object, and we pass that object as the first argument of the constructor for the to do application class, and the second argument that we have right now is our URL here. And if we want to use it locally, then we should put this into a comment, and I'll save it here, and we'll be using the local host and port, and to be consistent with what we do here with that void, we'll just append a get response at the end, and then when we start looking at the the configuration file for that void, we'll see the reason for get response for the address on the .void server. Okay, so our to-do application is now supplied by the URL, which is at the time being the local thing. And let's start the client. Okay, and right now, or the last week, we were able to communicate between a client and the server. And while the server was going on, we could go back and forth, use even the Chrome and, change things, move things from a client to a server, then again from a server to a client or a different client, etc. But when we shut down the server, everything will be lost on the server side. So the next time our client will start with the data saved locally, because dartling uses the JSON representation of dartling data is saved in a local storage. So then we can send again data to the service, but we lose our data. There is no persistency or there was no persistency of data on the server. This time there is, and the data is in MongoDB. So let's say if I select all of them and clear them locally, then if I say from server, this is the message that I get from the server, and then I get these three objects from the server. Let's say I delete this one and I say to server, and if I select all of them and clear them and say from server, I'll get these two objects. Okay, so what's going on here? And then again, if I refresh or restart, I should be able to get the data from the server. So what's going on here is that on the server side, we will every single time, or at the very beginning first, we will load the data from the MongoDB to the dartling's model. So this is the first step, and it would be worthwhile to basically see as well here the README file from GitHub to give you some instructions. Repositories, and this is the project. So what we say in the README data file, that we are using dartling on the server and on a client at the same time, the same thing as the last time. The local storage is used on a client, the same thing as the last time, but the last time we didn't have MongoDB used on the server, and it is now used on the server. Okay, I've also added, certain references that were useful, for making this project, and also I mentioned here .void because the project is prepared for to be used on .void. A short explanation, about the client. I guess it's the same one that we had before, but for the server, we say when server starts, it loads data from MongoDB to the model in main memory. When the model in main memory changes, the database is updated, and the server programming uses the model in main memory and not the database. And I'll explain this. Those are three very important points with respect to the server. So when the server starts, we will load all the data from the MongoDB into the empty model of dartling that will become full, with the data from MongoDB. And from that moment on, anytime we send data from a client to the server, the model will be updated. And because dartling has events, action events, we will listen to those action events, and consequently, with each action or transaction, we will update the Mongo database. So you can't really lose the data. I mean, anytime you change something in main memory of the dartling's model or data of the model, then the database MongoDB will be updated. I've done something similar with MySQL as well, and the code is a little bit longer than the code for MongoDB because dartling has a JSON representation of data, and MongoDB is a JSON database, so it's relatively easy to do the work. And anything we do with respect to like data integration on the server, anything else, we really use the data from the main memory. And I know that most people will start screaming at this point, and they will say, "Wow, but what if the server goes down? Then you will lose your data from main memory, and you would have to reload everything," which is not a big deal if you have just a small amount of data. But if you have a huge amount of data, it is a big deal. But my response to these things is I am a guy who wants to experiment and who wants to try new things. And actually, this is not any more new thing, because Redis has shown that you can use lots of data in main memory, and you may develop a support for those types of things in Redis environment. So that's a good thing for dartling, because dartling is using the same principle of putting all the data in main memory. Now, in order to today, with in 2014, with these new technologies and modern hardware and everything else, the problem of losing or having your server down shouldn't be as it used to be a long time ago. But still, I can accept that it is a problem. Okay, but we gain here what? We gain a lot on performance, because anything we do with this third point here in server programming will be using the data in main memory, so it will be much faster than if we had to go to our database all the time. And the second point, we are not going to lose anything, because immediately with futures as well, when there is a change in the data of the dartlings model, the database will be updated. Now, why I'm interested in this type of functioning? Actually, I've been interested in this type of server functioning for a long time. Much longer, much before that than Redis came with the same idea. And the reason for that is really performance. A long time ago, more than 20 years ago, I was a research director here in Quebec City for a company called Silverrun, that had Silverrun case tools, graphical tools to design large data models or large data flow diagrams and other types of analysis and design representations. And especially at that time, 20 years ago, if you use database at that time, if you had a database model of maybe 500 relations or something like that, huge models that we were developing at that time here in Quebec City for the government of Quebec, you just couldn't use a database, for those types of models. So even at that time, the main memory was much smaller than we have today, but we were able to really use huge models with respect to our competition. We were really ahead of time, and we were like a CAD/CAM a tool for database design and for analysis and design of database applications and information systems. And it worked pretty well, because we were using main memory. And actually, we had something similar to dartling at that time. We called it Common Development Environment, but that's a different story. But I started, to explore these types of things at that time. So I personally believe that today, especially today in 2014, if you can afford to have more main memory, then you can really put in that main memory quite a lot of data, and still we have that server problem if server goes down, but you can still work with huge amount of data. A few years ago, I was on a sabbatical in Bosnia, in Sarajevo, and a good friend of mine who was a consultant for an organization in Sarajevo, one of the largest organizations in Sarajevo with lots of data. And his company actually, in the last, maybe 30 years, they developed everything, they didn't have their own IT department, so, this consulting company developed everything for them. And a friend of mine was nice, you know, to spend a weekend with me, and we loaded all the data of that company into 8 giga of main memory. So you know you can use lots of data in main memory. Now, you know, I repeat that, you know, the problem with server, if the server goes down, is still a big problem. But you know, I you know, there are many solutions today, you know, to sleep, you know, relatively well with that type of problem. Now, there is another approach that I really prefer now, and I'll be working on that approach in the next few years. And I will invite other people if they want to participate with me. And hopefully, you know, someone from the Dart community will be able to either do it before me or join me, or I can join that person or whatever. What the idea is to basically, and I'll go now back to, and I'll stop sharing the screen. Okay, so that you can see me a bit. So what is the idea? The idea is to use more than one virtual machine. Okay. That means that more than one virtual machine on perhaps the same computer, or perhaps on different computers, or perhaps on many computers that are spread all over the world on the web. Actually, there is an open source project in the Java world that is called, I believe, Teradata or Terracotta. I think Terracotta, you know. Let me just check it. You know, I forget every single time, but I think it's Terracotta. I'll tell you how this is spelled, you know, correctly. Yes, it's Terracotta, and I'll share the screen again. Oh, sorry for that. Okay. Okay, so it's Terracotta is the software. It's big memory, and what they say here, it's an in-memory, you know, database management system that where you can scale, and you can scale by exactly using their software, Terracotta software, which will basically be upfront. You as a developer, you would program as if you had only one virtual machine, like one virtual machine for that, and it's their task to, if you are approaching the limit of the main memory on your computer, on your virtual machine, it was their task to look for another virtual machine, available virtual machine, and to basically allow you to continue programming as, you know, without any changes in your code, as if you were using the main memory of only one computer. And I've used this software. It's excellent software. The solution is really very intelligent. And you know, if they do not supply something similar to that virtual machine, you know, I think it would be worthwhile to work hard on a project of a similar nature. And then in that case, Dartling will scale tremendously, because you would say, I don't care, you know, I'll be just programming as usual with Dartling, you know, and someone else, meaning, you know, like a Terracotta software would take care of, you would have to have the access to multiple machines with multiple servers, but still, you know, even when the software like Terracotta goes and looks for another virtual machine, still you are much faster than if you were using, you know, one or multiple databases, you know, because we know the bottleneck is on hard disks, and the bottleneck is less on a communication between different computers. But still, you know, you will lose some time, that's for sure, with respect to a single virtual machine. But it will be much less than if you were using a distributed database. So in that sense, I believe in software like Terracotta and Dartling in future, where you can safely say, with other things, you know, to keep your server running, where you can safely say that basically you are using hard disks or database management systems, here MongoDB, only as a data store. When you have a change in your main memory of your data, you will propagate that change to your database. but you will still be working on your algorithms, on your processing with the data in main memory. And that's what I want to show you here. On the server side, in the lib folder, we have the database subfolder, and in this database subfolder, we have only one file called MongoDB Dart. Okay, and in this file here, we have this to-do MVC database class that we mentioned at the very beginning with these two parameters, which are the URI for the database and the name. For that void, it will be an empty space and the full address for the database on the server. And what you do here, you do exactly the same thing as we do usually when we start using dartling, meaning that and I have to say that as well. In the client folder, in the server folder, we have the same dartling. I didn't, this time I didn't want to really, go and Robert mentioned the last time that the server, .void server, can use the client library, but not vice versa for security reasons. But I just, copied the same thing to the lib folder in both client and the server, meaning, the gen portion of dartling where you shouldn't be changing anything if you regenerate, and the specific portion that starts with the domain name and a few files here. And the application folder is really our application, basically the same application that on the client side that we had before, but on the server, of course, we don't have that application. Okay, so what we do here is we create at the very beginning when the server starts, we create a repository, and then we get our domain from the repository, and then we basically are using here the action reaction events of dartling. They are called action reaction because actions are database or data actions, add, remove, and set, or update if you want to, and transactions on those actions as well. So the history of actions is kept in the domain object, and here you say start action reaction, meaning you want to listen to actions in order to react. And where are you going to react? The actions will be done with respect to domain. A single domain in dartling may have multiple models, and you can even use multiple databases. So one model may be on MongoDB, the other one may be on MySQL. I've tried these types of things, and they really work nicely. But the reaction to those actions will be in this object. And we also create a new session on the domain. Actually, these are two different things. The session is to keep the history of actions, and this here is to listen to changes in the mall based on actions in the mall. Then we get the mall from the domain based on the mall name, and we get our tasks from the mall. Which is exactly the same thing, as we do on the client side. So we have now the mall in main memory set up for dartling, but it's empty. Now, when we say, and this is what we did, it is on the server side. Okay, so that's what we do here. When we create our database, after that, after the creation, we will have the empty dartling model in main memory. Then we say db open, and after open is done, and it may take time if you have lots of data, because the open method will load the data from the database to main memory, and this is the reason that we use future here. And then we say when this is done, then we'll start the server. So here the open method of the to-do MVC database class will return the future. And what we do here, I've heard multiple times now that we shouldn't use completer class that much, but I find it here convenient. So if you find a better way to do this without a completer, please let me know. We create a new database object, and the database object comes from the MongoDB driver, I believe. So let's see in the lib here portion of the server. We see that we are here importing Mongo driver, and of course dartling, and the rest is the dartling mall. Okay, so we'll be creating a new database based on the URI and the name, and then we will open this a database. This is the real open MongoDB database. This is our open, with the future, but this is the MongoDB again, which is the future. And what we do here, we create a new task collection. It's another class in this file here. This is a task collection, in the sense of MongoDB, and we pass this keyword, meaning the object called the object that we created with the to-do MVC database constructor, and then when we have this task collection, we'll use the load method. Again, returns the future, and after the load is done, then we'll say that completer is complete. If there is some kind of error here, then we'll catch this error and we will print it, and then we return the future of this completer, for our open method. Our close method will close the database, and let's see that in the task collection, when we say load, we load the data from the MongoDB to the dartlings mall. So the tasks collection class has a constant that gives us the name of the collection. This is our to-do MVC database that I call here to-do. These are DB tasks of DB collection, from MongoDB driver. And in the constructor of the task collection, we'll create, DB tasks using our database, the database object of MongoDB driver, and then, providing the name of the collection. And the load will, again, I'm using here completer. The load will, and let me see here. Okay, the load will be using the collection, the find method that will, get the data. We'll move, the data to a list, and then an anonymous function with the task list will allow us, to go through the process of iterating through the list, creating for each to do in MongoDB a new task for dartling. And I forgot to mention this, on the server side, in the dartling mall, in the specific part that we have the right to change, in order to accommodate server programming in a better way, we have these new, this was generated by dartling, but this was added after code generation, and we have the right to do that because this is a specific portion of the code. And we have a new constructor called task from database, and we, as usual in dartling, we have to provide a concept for this task, and a map that will allow us to get to create task in dartling from the values that come from a single to-do object in MongoDB, in the collection of MongoDB. Now, this is a bit complicated, and the only reason that this is a bit complicated is because by default in dartling, you cannot update an ID. And there is a internal object ID or generally unique ID of dartling that is called OID. That you cannot really update, in a regular programming. But, in order for more sophisticated developers, as I am with respect to dartling, you can use the meta model of dartling, meaning the concept object here, and then you say update OID, becomes true, and then you memorize the value of OID of update OID before whether it's true or false, and then so at the end. You will, which is and is here. After you update OID, basically you will be, getting back to the default value or whatever the value was for the other concepts. And then here, there is no error. There is no error coming from the dartling. So we take our value map, and then there we'll find the OID key. Should be numbers, so we'll pass it, and then there is a constructor with the name .ts, meaning timestamp. We'll create a new OID based, and the reason that we are doing this in dartling, by default, when you create a new task, the OID will be generated automatically by dartling. But here we want to use the OID that is in the MongoDB database, and we are basically updating here the OID, but with this sort of this sort of meta model preparation, you are able to do that. And then, in dartling, you also inherit the code property. So we were not using the code here, but I just did it. We take the value of code, will come the code. It'll be null. The title in our task and the completed. And in dartling, you also have things like update when, that you inherit from dartling. So every single time you update an entity in dartling, there is a value, the last value, which is a date time value for the object, and like say here we take that value from the database, and we also have that for added and for removed and for set. So these three things. And again, you are using the same thing. We are saying, let's memorize what we have in update when for when added, when set, and when removed, and we'll come back to that value, and then we'll be able to update these. Otherwise, you are not supposed to update them, because it's dartling. When you add a new entity or set an attribute of that entity, or remove an entity, then the dartling will set this new datetime stamp for you, but we want to bring those values from MongoDB. So that's the constructor when you come from database, and this is something similar when you come from a JSON representation of data when you go from a client to a server. Very, very similar. The rest is to database a method that will create a map with the values that are in OID that you inherit from dartling, and then in MongoDB you have to save the string value, because MongoDB doesn't recognize the OID type. A code is string, so we can go straight. Title is string, we can go straight. Completed is Boolean. MongoDB supports Boolean, and date timestamp is also supported by MongoDB driver, so we can do it directly here. And other things that we had before, just for convenience reasons, if completed, negation of completed will give us left property and things of that nature. So in our database programming, with respect to MongoDB and dartling, the only thing we do, we get the to do, okay, from and to do is our object for our to do MVC database. In that object, we have a collection of tasks, and there we will take the concept, to provide the first argument, and our task map will be created here by this anonymous function based on the find method of MongoDB. And we will have a new task, and we'll take our to-do database and the tasks collection, representing really a collection of data in dartling, and we will add just usual stuff with dartling, this task that we created. Now here I'm not using the objects because I don't want to do undo and redo on the server. I'm just using the basic dartling add, remove, and set methods. And when we are done, we'll complete our completer and return the future of the completer. So this is the method that will load the data from the MongoDB to the collection of dartling. And, excuse me, I guess I talk a lot, but that I don't have a cup of water here. Okay, so in the last thing to explain, in our to-do MVC database, excuse me, class, we started by listening to actions of that link, and we will react here. So what is the reaction? You know, um, this is the action of that link, and we say if action is add action. So you know, for this type of event action reaction, we have to use the add action class and remove action class and set attribute action. We cannot use those regular small or the basic add, remove, and then set methods. So if it's add action class, then if the action is of the add action class, then we will call on the task collection object the insert method and use this action entity, what we were adding into the model of dartling. And if it's remove action, we'll just use the delete method. And if it was set attribute action, we'll use the update. And this is very simple, just for these three things for Mongo, by using Mongo driver for MongoDB. Insert will accept our task and will provide a future with a generic type parameter for future, which is based on task. And again, I've been using completer here, so we will say, well, based on this task, we'll take a task to database method that will convert that to a map. We have now a map, and we'll take our DB tasks collection. DB task collection is the DB collection, from MongoDB driver, and we'll just say insert. Again, we have a future here, and we'll be using task map. And when the insert is done, we will just print in the console of the server inserted task, whatever we inserted based on the title, which is the user ID, a unique user ID. And we'll say complete, and we'll return if there is an error, we'll print it, and we'll return the future of this completer. Very similar to delete. Very similar, for the delete method. Again, in the same way to obtain the task map, and then we'll just, from the collection, MongoDB driver collection, will remove this map. When it's done, we'll print remove task and complete the completer. And for the update, we will use the update method. So you can see it's trivial to basically propagate actions from the dartling model to MongoDB, and it's very simple to listen and react to whatever is done in dartling based on these more sophisticated add, remove, and set attribute actions. And the rest is to open the database and load the data into main memory, and to close at the end. And this is the load method, to load the data from the. But here we have only one concept, meaning only one collection in MongoDB. Things would be a little bit more complicated, for a real database with the multiple concepts, multiple relationships, and things of that nature. Okay, I'll go back to and stop the sharing. Robert mentions here, if you have a directory with your server and client directory in, like you have on GitHub, then it works good with the data. Simply open the directory that you have your Git repository in. Simply open directory that you have your Git repository in. I'm not sure what you are referring to here, Robert. Okay, you don't have to open the server and client directory separately. Well, I know that, Robert, but every single time when I open the whole project, the pub on my computer is really confused, and I get lots of red color. basically, and it runs, but I don't like to look at the code that is full of red color. And so there is something wrong with the pub if I open the project, but if I open the client and server folder separately, everything is clean. So this is the reason that I have been opening them separately. Okay, if maybe on Linux or something like that, you don't get them, but I'm on Windows, and I must say the pub on Windows, I've had some major problems. I have to explain you why I'm using Windows here, because this is a computer at university, and portable that I can bring home as well. But it's not my computer; it's the property of the university, and at my faculty, unfortunately, the standard is Microsoft, and I just couldn't do anything about that, basically. So the only thing I could do is buy my own computer, which I didn't want to do. So, and I cannot change major things like the operating system on that computer, because once in a while they do some kind of updates and centrally, and then if you don't have Windows, it won't work. Okay, so I'm back, and we can sort of chat about what I've explained here with respect to MongoDB. The code is relatively simple, but it is simple because we are using dartling, and we are really programming by using dartling and only using MongoDB to load the database at the very beginning when the server starts, and to update the database when things change in the model. I'm not sure if you have any reactions or any questions or comments or whatever. But that's how I want to work and explore. And if I finally one day realize that nobody likes that approach, or I cannot find servers that would allow me to do these types of things, I will probably be that reasonable to start using databases in a classical way. But I don't want that yet. Okay, I just want to explore and see if this is possible in the real world, if it's possible in the real world, to load all the data into main memory, work with it, and if we one day had something like Terracotta, to basically use multiple virtual machines and basically have unlimited main, for all practical purposes, the unlimited main memory, with the acceptance of that from time to time a server be down, and then you will have to reload all the data from the server to the main memory. Another approach is to have some kind of if you have a model with many concepts and relationships and multiple entry points, then you can say, well, I load the data only for the entry points, and I won't be loading all the data for each entry point, meaning a collection like tasks here. I'll be loading only maybe the first 500 entities or something like that, and then I'll be looking what data are used on the server side. Of course, what data will be what data are used frequently, and keep them in main memory, and the data that are not used frequently, you will liberate the main memory to get more space for the other data that you will be loading based on the need. So if you are traversing a collection of lots of data, then everything will be fast at the beginning, but when you have to look for another batch of data from the database, then you'll realize that things slow down. I guess that's sort of a classical way of using a database and still have a reasonable performance. So I'll stop talking, to recover a bit with my voice. And if you have any questions, comments, whatever, I'll be happy to discuss that with you. I'll have to cough again for a while. Okay, I guess no questions. That's fine. So I'll share the screen again. And let's see what we have here for. I'll stop the server and close all the tags, and first go into the to show you basically, before you, let's say, create this application based on the GitHub project that has, one single project, which is here for me to do. This is to do MVC, but this is to do MVC MongoDB. So this is the project on GitHub that I used to create, with the help of Robert, to create this project on that void. So the first thing that we have is this application configuration file that we have for the pub as well. It is called here app.yaml. I have a hard time to pronounce it correctly, YAML or YAML. I'm not sure how to do that actually. So what we have here is that this is the application name. I gave the application name because at the very beginning I wanted to give the name to do _MVC _MongoDB, but apparently the underscore wasn't acceptable character for that void. So, and I didn't realize at the time that I could have used that to do like a minus or dash, but I put all these three words together, and this is my application name, and those are the standard configuration parameters. My first version on that void, true for deploy, I guess pub spec is used, true for that to JavaScript, and my framework is dartling here, although I don't know, what that effect, is it for documentation purposes only, or because, that void doesn't support dartling for sure. Okay, so we have the handlers here. So in our URL address, we are saying, whenever we get, the web address for the, when we request something, and if there is at the end get response appended, then exactly like that, I guess, then the script will be used from the server file. And we'll see that, again, with the help of Robert, I finally understood that you have to add get response at the end of your URL. And here we have for the static context that the web directory of your client application, the static content will be in the web directory of your client portion of the project. So it's not that complicated, and there are not that many things that you have really, to change for your own project, I guess. I already mentioned that on the server side, the server.dat file must be in the server folder. That's what we did. And we are saying again, just to remind you that we are on the server side, we'll be using and I guess the platform class comes from the input-output, so I believe, but I'm not sure 100%, so that we can't use it on the client side, but the environment, or perhaps I'm wrong, so the environment, with the port value will provide us for that void the real port number, which is, I don't know exactly what the number is, but who cares, we get it, and we use it here. And therefore, when we start the server, this will be ignored because, MongoDB URI that we pass basically here with the platform environment will get the value for that, and then we'll pass that value as the first argument for our to-do MVC database class, and then database name will be empty because the name is included by that void already. So that's what you do on the server side. On the client side, this file must be index.html in the web directory, and in the corresponding file, what you have to do before you use your project, because you use your project from GitHub to create the corresponding project on that void, you will put, this into the comment and uncomment this one here, and these two constants will be ignored. So this is the address. This is my address on that void. The application name is called to do MVC MongoDB. This is my username, and I guess this is .blob.com address. And then we had to add here get response for the URL that will be passing to our application, and I'll just save it here so that this will stay, ready if you go to because this is exactly I believe as it is right now on GitHub. I'll check that and be sure that it is. So if you clone this project, you'll get everything ready for your own as the basis for your own project. Okay. So if we go, I guess I'll just use it here. If we say .void, and this is my sign in, and I'll sign in with GitHub. So at the very beginning, what you have to do is you have to go here and say, I want to create my application. I provided the name to do MVC MongoDB as one word, and I clicked here, start with an existing Dart repository, and then I have my projects from GitHub listed, and I just selected here to do MVC MongoDB, and after that I said create, and the project was created. So after that, you will see that you have the URL for your application, and you have the address for your GitHub project. You can use console, to see the messages from the server. And if I believe at the beginning you have to enable your application, because in this sort of a transition period before you start paying for the services, I guess you shouldn't have more than, I believe, 3 applications or something like that, and only one of them must be enabled. But that what people are here to correct me, and I'm ready to be corrected. And then I used also the delete button when I did something that wasn't correct, and then finally I deleted the project and then recreated the application. So I'll just click here, and I'll get my application in Chrome, and this A comes from the local storage. So if I remove it from the client side, and if I say from server, I get the A from the server. So let's say I get new B here, and I say to server, and I guess that either I can use the console of .void, or I can also use Control Shift J, I guess, to see my messages like JSON text from the server, to see that things go go well. And here I'm not sure if I did it already to server, but let's check what I did. So we'll just remove it and say from server. So I have A and B from the server. I can, let's say, complete the task and realize on the client side I can use dartlings undo and redo. This is only the client side, and the things will be, the entities will be saved in the local storage. But then after I change certain things, and if I, let's say here again, I want to complete this, and I say to server and select all, remove them locally, and they say from server, I get things from the server. What Robert did today, which is really interesting, but like locally, I can use locally my Dartium in Dart editor and in Chrome JavaScript version of the application, and I did it before, to show on the same machine that you can, sort of use 2 clients at 1 server. But what Robert did, which is really interesting, in this in the Dartium here, he kept the I guess the address from .void. So if I here, and I'll try to do that here. Let me see if my server is still running here. Yes, I'll knock it down, just to be sure that everything is okay. So, and this is, I'll restart. I'll restart my MongoDB, and MongoDB is on. So I'll just restart my server, run the server, okay, and then I'll use my client application and the web folder and the index HTML. And again, to be sure, I'm using really not the local host, but the .void. And I say run in Dartium. And oh, I have an exception here now. Okay, breaking on exception null. Okay, so I won't waste my time, because I haven't tried it, yet, but I'll see after the session what's going on. And if there are certain things that I can, inform you on in a post in the Start.Dart community, I will do that. But I guess the idea was, to use the Dart void server from the local application here, and then play two clients with the same database, Mongo database server. Another thing, and I'll go back to see if Robert has some messages from me here. Ooh, lots of messages. Okay. Okay. Okay, the console.void to see the output from the server. The console in the browser to see the output from the client. No, only run the client code locally. You press run on the wrong file. Right click and press run on the index HTML. Okay, let's see what I did. So two things. I believe I should be looking at console here. Okay, to be sure that I get the right messages on the server for my application. Thank you for that. And I guess I used the wrong. The server is running, so I'll say index and run in Datium. Okay, and I get it. I believe this is in that. So let me repeat this again. Run in Datium. Okay, so I'm not sure what I did then. Thank you, Robert. Okay, so this is the application that is connected now to the server. So let me see if it works. So here I'll basically, let's say I'll add these things that I have locally here to the server. And in my Chrome application, I'll just say from server. It says inserted task AA and CC on the database, so that worked, and it should work as well, here, but I didn't get it. Oh, because maybe, okay, because I remove things. You can see I'm tired, okay, so I'll just clear everything here, and then I'll say from server, and I should get, AA and CC that I send to the server, but I had something else on the server. So, well, I have to redo these things, on my own, when I'm not tired, and I plan, and I already informed Robert that I'll take a few days the next week, to describe the application, to do application that is done with dartling and MongoDB, and I'll try to explain how this can be, created on Dart Void, and I'll ask Robert to. He offered me his a peer review for the Dart Void portion, and I guess for the whole article. And if everything is okay, I may share it in Start.Dart community, and we'll see if we can publish that article, somewhere, maybe even as an article on Dart language site, but we will see. Okay, so let me go back here. Add a new item on the local version, press from server on the internet version, and it works. Oh yeah, okay, you are right. Okay, that's what I didn't do. Okay, so if I am here on the server, and this is the application, this is the client. Okay, so I have to say from server, MongoDB database, to get things, and I guess I got that. Okay, but let me try to do something else. Let me add just one thing here. Well, a queue. We'll add it here. Say to server. Go to the Chrome client application and say from server, and I get my queue. Okay, nice. And let's say here I'll just say this is completed, and I'll move it to the server on Dart Void, and we'll go into MongoDB database, and then in my Dartium I'll say from server, and I should get the queue completed here. So from server, I don't get it completed, so I don't know what's going on. Okay, it's completed here. Maybe I didn't send it to the server. I don't know. So this is go to the server. Okay, and just to be sure, on this application, on this Chrome application, I'll remove everything locally and then say from server. So I get from the server that queue is completed. So if I go into Datium here and let me repeat the same thing, and then I will, try to update it, and then say from server, I get queue completed. What I didn't get, but I'll try again. Here I'll say queue is not completed. Okay, and then I'll go to server, and then and this is Datium, and I'll go here and say from server, and I have a problem here. And maybe the problem is with timestamps because I'm verifying, if, a timestamp, all the I guess the most recent timestamp will win or something like that. I have to check that. But it may be that I have a problem with the updates. But if I remove, let's say, queue, and then say go to server, and go to the Datium, and I say from server, queue should go. So I think I have a problem with timestamp. I have to re-examine that, the next week really well. But, it's as Robert mentioned, this is a nice demo to show, to show two clients, and one server. And even on that void, locally it's much easier at the beginning, but then, even on that void, and then, having even a local version that points to the dot void server, which is really nice, and the real, application on dot void that is not local, but coming from dot void website. And then, what we can explore with these types of approaches is to say, let's say you go offline, like here I can go offline. I can shut down internet and then say, well, in my data editor, I'll be, changing some things, and the things will be saved in a local storage. And then after that, I'll turn internet on again, and we'll point to the .void address and URL, and then basically, say, from server to get the recent changes from other clients, and then say to server to send my stuff that I've changed. That's quite possible with dartling because it uses local storage, and it does that sort of, not in dartling, but in the application and server code, that sort of primitive data integration. What I plan to do with dartling is to do a real data integration in the dartling software, but to do that properly, and and I have a support already, a partial support for that with the timestamps, like when added, when removed, when set, and things of that nature. But I would also have to have some kind of a logging log, so to have I have a history that I can use for that. But for a certain period of time, I may say, well, save these things into my log that I can use then, to as a JSON document to separate added entities from removed entities from update entities, and then send one JSON document with 3 different collections. Then the data integration in dartling can be done quite easily on the server side without really writing any code. So that's one of many things that I have to do with respect to the dartling project, basically. And then this is, and I'll be closing this session pretty soon. So I'll go back to okay, again, Robert is feeding me with more things here. Yes, that void is UTS. That might be the problem using CORS. Without CORS headers, this example would not work. Okay. What's a UTS, Robert? Oh, times. Okay, time zone. Okay. Okay, so you take into so do you take into account the differences in time, or you don't? If you say UTS, it means that you take into account the time zone. Oh, it's uh, 0. Okay, it's like a London time. Okay, so those are the things that perhaps we should add in that document that you will be reviewing the next week. And and Robert, I'll be pretty happy if we realize that there are many things with respect to that word that would be useful to explain in that document. Then I'll be pretty happy to invite you to be one of the authors of the document, so that we can keep it as both for Dart Void and for Dartling as sort of a write-up about what can be done when you put a few nice things together. Okay, great. Okay, so we have a few minutes left. This is the last session. I asked last time Goran, sort of to tell me what can be improved with those types of things. So, but I won't be, tiring, you two guys from that void. Goran, if you want to, you can send me a private message or even public message on in Startup.community. Doesn't bother me, or private message through Google Plus. And I would really appreciate that, because you are the only person who I guess was from the very beginning to the very end in this Start on that community course. And I'll be really happy, to incorporate your comments in in one of the future attempts to talk about Dart or Dartling or something like that. I must say that a good portion of those 13 sessions were on Dartling as well, so maybe I was using too much time, but I couldn't resist, because Dartling is my baby. And I use Dartling, to develop games. I use Dartling to develop, client-server application, at least demos or something like that. And I use Dartling to develop different types of things, both on the client and on the server, with MySQL and MongoDB and different things. And in all of those things, I had a good performance that I should start measuring also. Many things to do. I was able to use undo and redo and action reaction events of Dartling and many other things and transactions and things of that nature, and many other things that you may find in Dartling useful. The last thing that I want to say, I want to thank first of all Goran for being for suffering from my long lectures in Start.community, community, and also for I want to help. I want to thank Dart Void people for helping me with this session. And hopefully we will see each other in the future. I'll be retiring officially on September the 1st this year, but unofficially on May the 1st, because I'll be done with my lecturing basically today. I have few projects to grade for my students, but on May the 1st, approximately, I'll be a free man. So, but I'll focus quite a lot on Dartling development in the next year. Okay, so
well, Julian, I have to say it's been a really exciting winter and spring, and I think I am very grateful to you, and I hope others are as well. So I'm really looking forward to see you this autumn for the follow-up on this. And we have to remember that Dart is in early days, and what you showed today, on Dart Void and Dartling in cooperation is a really impressive thing. I'm not an expert, but I can see and appreciate when progress this time. So thank you very much for the time so far, and hope to see you again this autumn.
You're welcome, Gordon. Thank you, and I hope to see you soon as well, and both Robert and Andreas as well. And I wish you luck with that word. It's an excellent idea, and I really it's a great project. And I wish good luck to Goran with his Dart adventures as well.
Great. See you after summer.
Okay. Have a good summer.
Thank you. Same to you.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Oh, Julia was here as well. Okay, I didn't realize that. Thank you, Julia, and bye bye as well.